This is Inside the Right. Tim, more than 200 Republicans who've worked for George W. Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney have just released an open letter endorsing Kamala Harris. What kind of an impact does something like this have?
Look, I think it's an important sign to people, right? That it's okay to come out and be for Kamala. And we saw this at the convention last week with Kinzinger, Jeff Duncan, Stephanie Grisham. I just think at the rank and file, there's all these people have folks in their lives, right? They can live in swing states. And so I think that's good. Two, B, it's just kind of for, people that are these Nikki Haley voters that we talk about. It's just, they're going to need continued nudges. Like, I got to keep being reminded, it's okay. The water's warm. There are other people there. There are a couple other things that I think among the particular names when I was going through them. None of these are particularly household names, but I know them, right? Since I'd worked on these campaigns. And there were a few things that stood out, like my friend Sally Bradshaw, who was Jeb's top advisor in Florida and was like the architect of that famous RNC autopsy that was like the GOP should move more to the middle, particularly on immigration and gays and women's issues. She was on there. So again, that's again kind of a signal to people that are in that sort of autopsy mold of republicanism, which is basically dead inside the MAGA party. Jean Becker was another name that jumped out at me. She was George H.W. Bush's chief of staff throughout his entire post-presidency, probably the person closest to him of anybody besides Barbara. And so, that was a little bit of a wink, I think, about, what the elder Bushes felt about Trump. So, look, is this a huge silver bullet? No, but I think that it is good for them to continue to do it. And I think it shows that the campaign is on this, right? They had the Mesa, Arizona mayor Tuesday, Jeff Duncan Wednesday, Kinzinger Thursday. It ends on Monday. This letter comes out. I think you'll continue to see more, right? And I think that drip, drip, drip is important.
Tim, you've been in politics for a long time, Republican politics for a long time. Has anything like this ever happened before?
It was similar to a lesser degree with Biden because it's COVID, right? And so, just like a lot of the grassroots stuff was mangled. It wasn't there for Hillary, right, in 2016. A lot of that because of Clinton baggage with Republicans going back to the 90s. And a lot of people didn't believe Trump could win. I think there were a lot of rationalizations. I voted for Hillary, just so we know, to be clear, but most of my other former Republican colleagues sat that one out. So no, I think that this is unprecedented to have this level. I mean, hundreds of people. Just think about the inverse as just like a counterfactual. Think about how crazy this is. Imagine if tomorrow the Trump campaign put out a press release and it was like 200 staffers from Barack Obama's campaign and Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign and John Kerry's campaign in 2004 are endorsing Trump.
Yeah.
Everybody'd be like, "Oh my God, that is unthinkable, right?"
Yeah,
It's unthinkable.
it's true. I mean, it would be a 5 alarm fire for us. I mean, the panic that I would feel at something like, even if we didn't know any of their names. I mean, just having the sheer number of people doing that would be kind of staggering.
Right. And so the fact that that's happening in the inverse, it's like we shouldn't have, to steal a Bush line, the soft bigotry of low expectations for Donald Trump, that it isn't staggering just because it's Trump. And it's like, why? So I do think it's a big deal. Think that it comes, from all those eras too. It's like the Gene Beckers from that old H.W. Bush era all the way up to, people that worked as recently on campaigns as 2016, I think is pretty noteworthy.
How real is the permission structure that this offers to other moderate Republican voters or former Republican voters? Because, I obviously get encouraged when I see something like this, but I also don't want to delude myself into thinking that this is going to have some massive impact if ultimately it won't. So where do you think you stand here?
So I'm of kind of two minds about this. On the one hand, a lot of people like this are probably people that voted for Biden already, right? Like we had this big realignment in politics, right? Where, the Obama Trump diner voters that the New York Times went to see, the working class blue collar guys, they used to be for Union Democrats. Now they're for Trump. College educated suburbanites, particularly women, used to vote for, Mitt Romney. Now they're for, right. So like some of these people have already moved. So I don't think it's like this massive impact because some of that realignment has already happened. But man, any realignment is gradual over time. You know what I mean? And so it's like there's the lowest hanging fruit of people that were just like, oh, Trump's disgusting. I could never, right? Then there was the next category of people that was like, Trump's disgusting, but I'm still very Republican. I don't know if I'm going to write in somebody, right? And then there's the next category of people that was like, Trump's disgusting. I'm not going to hold my nose and vote for him. And then January 6th happened, right? So like you can keep adding onto the numbers. And I think that's why it's important to do this, right? Like, I think that to think that it's like, the Nikki Haley vote in the primary was 18% or whatever, to think that you can gain 18% is crazy, right? Like,
Right.
that's not it, because some percentage of her voters were already Biden voters and some percentage are never going to vote for the Democrats. But if you can just squeak out 2, 3%, I mean, that's ball game, right?
Yeah. These are, again, 200 Bush and McCain and Romney officials, but what about the actual Republicans like John Kelly and H.R. McMaster and Mike Pence and Chris Christie? Where are those people who presumably have more sway than little-known officials?
Great question, Brian. It's fucking annoying. And it was a great DNC convention, but I got to say, I was frustrated. That there was not. I love Adam Kinzinger. He's a friend of mine, but wasn't there anybody higher up the food chain that could have given that speech before Kamala? I mean, I think that Chris Christie would have just lit that place on fire, and I think
Yeah.
he would have tore the roof off that place. So I was disappointed that these guys are being cowardly and didn't do it. I wrote an article about this for the Bulwark over the weekend, calling them out and saying that the time is now, particularly if you're a Trump cabinet official, particularly if you're John Kelly or Jim Mattis or H.R. McMaster. Like, you saw this stuff up close. It is incumbent upon you, like, morally, to come out and tell people what you saw again, remind people, and to say that Kamala Harris is a better option. I mean, John Kelly, I wrote this in the article, called Trump the most flawed human he's ever met in his life. It's like, okay, well,
Seems
so
like
on the
enough
one
of a
hand,
seems like enough of a predicate to then go ahead and endorse Kamala Harris.
yeah, right. I mean, if he's the most flawed person you've met in your life, Kamala Harris is clearly better than that, no matter what you
Yeah.
think about Kamala. So come on, man, let's get off the couch and get out here, do something, as Michelle Obama said, Kamala Mom said. And so, look, they need to do it. I am imploring them to do it. We are imploring them to do it at the Bulwark. The most generous point of view of this is, and I think that this is true for at least one, maybe two people. I think that there's some plans already in the works. Is that drip, drip, drip that we're talking about? That you wanted to have some people endorsed in the fall. I'm not breaking any news here. I don't have any private information, but I'm almost certain Liz Cheney's going to do that. Mark Esper was on CNN yesterday, and I'm not a psychic, but just reading between the lines of what he was saying on CNN,
Yeah.
it sure seems like Mark Esper, who's Trump's Secretary of Defense, is going to do it in the fall. So hopefully some of this is strategy, but I also think some of it's cowardice, and we need to kick the cowards in the ass, and hopefully have a few more drips besides Liz this fall.
Well, for those watching right now, you should definitely read that op-ed that Tim wrote in the Bulwark. So I'll put the link to that op-ed right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. Definitely take a few minutes because it is a great read. Tim, there was also a moment that Michelle Obama gave during the convention where she kind of called out these Republicans who seemed to be waiting for some red carpet invitation by the Harris campaign to basically come on board. And these people shouldn't need that. They shouldn't need some big overture to do the right things. The thing that they themselves have already shown that they would be more predisposed to doing anyway. What do you make of what Michelle Obama said on that stage?
Man, I thought she was great. I think that besides Kamala, I thought she gave the best speech. I just really quick on Kamala before I answer your question. I thought she kind of did give an overture to all those people. That's another thing that I wrote about in the article. Her rhetoric, particularly around foreign policy and American
Oh, for sure.
exceptionalism
Yeah.
and the rule of law, like some of that stuff, not all the policies, but a lot of the themes would have felt very at home at a John McCain convention in 2008.
I mean, the NATO section, like that
Yeah.
is not something that you would normally hear at the DNC.
Right. Lethal force. We're gonna have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I mean, let me tell you, the Bulwark HQ was hooting during that line. So
Yeah.
I think that Kamala did give them an opening to come
Right.
along. I think Michelle Obama's urging to actually act was absolutely correct. I thought those were the two best speeches, in my opinion. And look, I just it's frustrating, and I think that some of this stuff is just they don't want to deal with the hassle. And it is a hassle. It just is. Like, that's just the reality. Like, if John Kelly's going to come out, you get a lot of media shaking you down. You got friends and family that are still MAGA that are mad at you. You've got consulting contracts where somebody's like, do you have to, whatever, now we're taking income. Or, like, there's all of these little hassles. But man, Jeff Duncan, I thought, had the best line of the convention from out of the Republican crowd, where he said, doing the right thing is never the wrong thing. And that was his line that he said it was kind of a family motto that him and his son had shared with each other around the moment where he decided to do this. And I think that's right. And I'm hopeful that some of them will come along. And I'm hopeful that with additional pressure, with these 200 people coming out, with some of us making private phone calls, urging them to do the right thing, with Kamala's speech, that we're going to have more to talk about on this front in the next few weeks.
Well, Jeff Duncan also had a good line that I think was another overture to his Republican supporters out there, and he said, voting for Kamala Harris doesn't make you a Democrat, it makes you a patriot. And I thought that was a good one as well. So, of course, we'll stay on top of this and kind of wait to see who else comes on board in terms of these former Republicans offering a permission structure to other Republicans to let them know that it's okay to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. And, of course, for folks watching right now, that's exactly what Tim and his colleagues at The Bulwark do. So if you're not yet subscribed to The Bulwark, please make sure to subscribe. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Tim Miller.
This is Inside the Right.